Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be doing a whirlwind tour of glazing and tell you everything you need to know about this simple technique to move from one colour to another in a smooth blend. Glazing is one of many blending techniques and we'll be covering the others in subsequent videos. The main thing about glazing is the consistency of the paint is very important, so if you've not already watched it, I would recommend heading to our thinning paints video where I first showed a graph like this. But basically, when we think of blending, we're thinking of that ratio of paint to water, and certainly with a glaze, we're looking at any ratio where it's at least 1:1 paint to water. So on this chart, the left-hand side, not really glazing, but as we move into these ratios where there's more water than paint, we're definitely approaching that glaze consistency. Thinking of that paint consistency then, the more paint we have in, the faster we'll be able to get our colour on the model, but the less smooth our end result is. And with glazing, it's all about smoothness. It's why it's most used as a finishing step. Really, we want that paint nice and thin so that we can build up the effect over many, many layers, even if it can feel at times that what we are doing adds nothing to the model. It's about trusting the process and ending up with a very smooth blend. So step one of using a glaze to blend is to make a glaze. You need that on your palette ready to go. And I'm just going to show you how I mix my glazes. I've put a drop of AK Interactive Dark Prussian Blue on the palette. I then take from this droplet of paint to make my desired consistency. So popping that on the palette and then getting a dropper bottle and adding 2 fat drops of water to it to make the start of my glaze before testing. Something that confused me when I first started painting was that the glaze consistency when mixed on the palettes tends to dry out a lot quicker than the drop of paint. Bear that in mind, that when you add this water, that it will do that. This is something that Roman Lepat calls out in a number of his videos. Basically, as you add this water, it changes the dynamic of the paint, it's going to evaporate away much quicker. We don't want our glaze to go everywhere, so the most important thing you can do after you've loaded up your brush is wick away all that excess. Very important step. I use my thumbnail to test my glazes just because it gives you a really clear sense of how much the colour is carrying through. And you can see here that I'm getting some of the blue on, but still in my eyes quite a bit. This isn't necessarily as close to a full glaze consistency as I would want. So my test has told me the information I need, I now need to remix. And remixing is simple. If you want your glaze to be thinner, add more water. If you want it to carry more colour and be thicker, add more paint. It's that simple. Mine was carrying too much colour, so all I'm doing is mixing in more water from my clean water pot with my brush. That easy. So I never glaze without testing, so I test again with my new mix. I see that it's more transparent, it's more where I want it to be, so now I'm ready to start glazing. So I picked one of these small little shields that go in front of Space Marines to test on. They probably have a name and I've got it wrong, and you can yell at me in the comments, that's fine. So before this moment, I've base coated it, the ultramarine blue I want to use. At the bottom where I want it to be lighter, I've just worked in a bit of a lighter colour and glazed that in just so it's a transition. And now I want to graduate to the darker colour, the dark Prussian blue that I've mixed up, to the top. And so that's what I'll be doing in this glaze, is basically applying brush strokes of my thinned paint from the middle of the shield to the top where I want it to be darker. And here you see, that's all I'm doing. I'm taking that very thin paint consistency and I'm following that line. Now, I know that the point where I end my brush stroke, I will deposit the most paint, so that is the area I want to be darkest. And that is the process. I will begin to speed this footage up now so you can see the process as it happens, so nothing is missed, but obviously I don't want to spend 20 minutes showing you me painting the same bit over and over again in a thin glaze. But that is what glazing is. It is an exercise in endurance. It's something I like doing with a podcast or a YouTube video on in the background, and it's about building those very thin layers up over time to make a transition. The thing I'll add here, because it was a point of confusion for me when I first started, is that you don't cover the same area over and over again. That's just building up one single thick layer. We want to graduate into the colour that we want, and so you start with the largest area and then you paint in gradually smaller ones closer to the color that you want. So if I started from the midsection, I'm now starting slightly in from the midsection, then further in, then further in, then further in. So I'm graduating those layers. Always make sure that the layer is dry before you put another layer on. When you get it right, it should dry very quickly, but bear that in mind. You do not want to be adding texture by painting over semi-dried paint. So I've done my glazing, I'm now checking, and I can see that I've got it into that darker shade that I want, and I'm reasonably happy with the blend. Glazing works any way that you want it to, so here I'm actually glazing back in some of the mid-tone to ensure it transitions into the darker tone slightly smoother, and I'm just using another glaze for that. Everything is generally quite smooth on the shield, so why would I kind of mess that up with a thick paint? I'm just using the glazes to blend everything out and make sure it's how I want it to be. It's why you'll often hear people refer to glazing as a finishing step, because it is best at the end where things are generally where you want it to be. And that is it. With that done, I've got those transitions that I want. I've just put in an edge highlight, and now this shield is ready for me to add an ultramarine symbol to it. I hope you found this guide to glazing useful. If you like it, please let us know in the comments, or if you want to support Get Good in all that we do, please check out more of our YouTube videos or look at our Patreon and the wonderful community that we have over there. That's all for now. Thank you for watching.